Hi, it's Shane back again with from Supercon, and you know, there's family, there's friends, and then there's friends that you become family. And Tom Nguyen is part of our Supercon family. Tom was actually the very first guest that I asked to appear at Supercon when we were in a hotel basement in a hotel lobby, and he's been part of almost every convention. Missed last year, but I'm so happy to have him back in the fold. Tom is a creator, a photographer, an artist, an inker. He's a Renaissance man. He's a wonderful friend of ours. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tom Nguyen. Thanks for joining us, Tom.
Thanks for having me, Shane, and I'm very grateful to have you in my life. Um, we met eons ago in St. Paul for, I believe at the time it was FallCon or SpringCon. I want to say FallCon because I remember the building where we would speak, and it seemed like it was FallCon, if I remember correctly. But, you
Yep.
know, we just hit it off. We kept in touch for at least a couple of years or so, and then you approached me and talked about Supercon at the time, and uh, I was part of the first Supercon, and I've been to most of them up until now.
Yep.
So I've anytime I join a convention family from the ground up, I consider it my family too. And it's great. And you guys are next door, so I mean you're practically local to me, So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm very grateful, and it's always fun. I can't wait for my wife someday to experience it too.
No, I'm very excited about that. I was hoping for it this year, but we have to make the right choices and protect everyone.
Hmm.
And so hopefully, a vaccine comes and we can celebrate together the fifth anniversary of SuperCon in 2021. We're hopeful for that, but we will always err on the side of protecting our fans and the creators who come and join us.
Sure, understood.
Yeah. So, Tom, the first time I saw you, I sat in on a drawing panel that you were doing, talking about how to draw. And I think you were promoting one of your books at the time, How to Draw Women or How to Draw
I think I remember that
Bodies. And
actually.
yeah, yeah. And what
Didn't I
has
have one of
amazed
my
me, right?
models sitting with me? I'm sorry to interrupt. Didn't I have a
Yes,
model
no,
sitting
no.
next to me?
Yes, yes, you did. Yep, yep.
Okay,
You
yeah,
had the model from your booth, and you brought her in for the
yeah.
panel. And what's amazed me in your artwork is your attention to and understanding of anatomy. Your characters look real, and there's different stylized, and I'm drawn to that as well. But I'm always impressed by how lifelike and real your characters look. How did you get to that process? What brought you to this realistic style that you have?
Well, thank you. Yeah, I do appreciate it. As far as how realistic my artwork is perceived, I think part of that's in the eye of the beholder, but I think you are absolutely correct, and I try to be fairly accurate in my anatomy and drawing people. There's a fine line between accuracy and uh, dynamics in comics. Comic book art, as you well know, is a very specialized type of artwork that not many people really know how to do well. Um, so it's as far as the anatomical part of it, and I don't even think I'm the best guy at it, not even close. Although I like to think that um, I'm more well versed than the typical artist approach as far as dynamics first, anatomy second. Not that I'm reversed, but I think a lot of it was kind of beaten into me when I first met Doug Maxwell when I was 15 years old, breaking in, because he was the first pro I ever met that critiqued my work, and his artwork was so anatomically well drawn that at a young and impressionable age of 15, I was just drawn to that type of style. And then he made me really pay attention to details. He was already a working pro at the time, and
Yeah,
I was just a kid. So it was very impressionable, and I admired his approach to drawing figures. And, I remember he would just go over some of my figures, and then he would kind of redraw it, sketched out in pencil. And I'm sure I still have it somewhere, like at my parents' house in a box. But yeah, I was just really fascinated by anyone that can just draw something well out of their head. And that was something I always strive to be good at. And wouldn't you know it, years later, I end up working with him as a team, on books and stuff. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah. You finished a lot of Doug's work over the years, haven't you?
probably the first half of my career, solid first half of my career was partners with Doug. So yeah,
Yeah.
I broke in as an inker over him, and geez, I mean, just hit the ground running right away. Breaking in as young as I did at 19, and working on bigger books like Superman, the Man of Steel, and
Hmm.
Justice League, and Batman with one of your other guests, Judd Winnick. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's crazy how
Under the
everything's
red
just kind
hood.
of come together.
Yeah.
Under the Red Hood, it's like
Yeah.
to this day, I would say Under the Red Hood has probably done the most for my career financially. Um, After the fact, as far as royalties and booking gigs and just keeping my name somewhat relevant anyway. It's that, and I'd say probably the whole Green Lantern, Blackest Night saga
Wow.
is,
Yeah.
is up
Yeah.
there too. Yeah.
Yeah. That was huge. So when you're working with Doug, and you can comment on other artists too, how much finish work did you do for Doug? Like, was it very much done, or did to start with, and maybe later he gave you more leeway with your inking to finish, or has Doug always been just this is the way it is now? This.
That's a good question. So uh, definitely at the beginning of my career when I broke in, it was very, I mean, it was very much a penciler inker thing. And
Mhm.
it always has been. But, you grow together as a team, you kind of see where, you know, he can kind of see where I can put in a little more work and where he can cut corners. And I think sometimes I got the feeling that by him looking at my work, um, he could play to my strengths too as an inker.
Sure.
I think towards, like after so many years, his stuff, I think by today's standards, definitely got a little looser. But I wouldn't call it like sketchy layouts. But
Yeah.
he could get away with some things, at least with me. And it could be different depending on who is inking him. But there were a few times where I helped him where he really did, we were on deadline. This was during Green Lantern. And he would give me roughs and I would just finish them. So they were very rough, loose pencils, and I would just basically ink it as if they were tight pencils, and then like I'd hand it off back to him, and then like he would touch it up where he needed to, and then we'd do like an assembly line thing over multiple pages. Like I remember he spent the night over at my house one time. We literally pulled an all nighter of him. We had to do like half an issue or something like that, and
Wow.
literally like half an issue and within a day or two. Um, and we just spent all weekend just handing off pages assembly line style. Like he roughed a layout in, and he just give it to me, and then I like did what I could. I'd throw it back to him. He'd add more, and then we just kept going back and forth till it was all done. But it takes a special penciler inker relationship and experience to get to that comfort level where
Yeah.
where he could trust me and to do that. So and for me that was a great experience. I've had my back against the wall several times, to say the least, in my career, where you just have to just turn it on and get the work done, and not try to overanalyze and fret too much about perfect placement of lines and stuff like that. You just needed to get something done.
Yeah. I always marvel at the fans out there that like all they do is draw. Like they don't understand at all the amount of work that it takes to bring a vision to paper, and so there's some artists may do thumbnails and then rough and then finish and then ink and then color and then lettering. It's a process. It's not just enter, hit, send, and
Yeah.
I really respect that about, I've watched you working on pages during conventions, and I've watched you disappear to your hotel room immediately done because there's a
Yeah.
deadline. This is a
Yeah.
business,
Yeah.
it's, you know,
Yeah. Drawing is the
eh,
easy part. It's the deadline that you have to that makes or breaks you as a professional. And not only just meeting a deadline, but doing it consistently and consistently. And anyone with given enough time can draw something. Even if you don't know how to draw something well, you have the luxury of taking the time to look at a reference and learn how to draw it well. But if you've only got half a day to do something, that's where the real test is. It's kind of like with lifting weights. I always say, going to the gym and lifting weights is the easy part. The hard part is your diet. That's
Right.
like 75, 80% of how your body is going to look is your diet. So people don't understand that until they do it. So.
Yeah. So that. I was going to bring that up too, going back to the anatomy. With your background in bodybuilding and lifting, and your photographic eye, how much do those two hobbies, and well, not just hobbies, I mean, these are passions of yours. How much do those two play into influence your artwork, Tom?
I didn't mention that before, but the bodybuilding played quite a bit into it. I mean, bodybuilding, you really have to be very intimate with your muscles. I mean, you have to know how they operate. You have to know what exercises. I mean, I went to school for anatomy and kinesiology too, and that plays into my drawing. And every time people ask for advice on drawing figures, I half jokingly say, take up bodybuilding, because that
Mm-hmm.
will teach you about every muscle and how it works a lot faster than just looking at books. And
Right.
the side effect is you get healthy too when you do it. But so there's no downside really to it. But that played. The photography came a little bit later. I didn't start professional photography till 10 years ago, as far as my first paid gigs.
Okay.
So, but
Okay.
where that plays into my artwork is now I'm much more aware of light and shadow, types of
Right.
light, hard light, soft light, and even anatomy. In that I work with a lot of models, fitness models as well, and seeing how light casts a shadow towards different areas of the body. So yeah, that does help a little bit, although not initially. So
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm before I forget, I'm supposed to tell you hello from Jenny Mack, and she still treasures the boudoir
oh
photo session that you guys did together at Supercon.
oh, tell her I said hi. Tell her I said hi. And
I will.
her and
Yeah, she even
Stacy,
promoted it. Yeah. Yep.
amazing models, during my panel that you guys graciously let me do. And that was a lot of fun. So,
It was. It to this day, it's one of the best attended. I wonder why.
well, I'm happy to do more,
But yeah, yeah. No, that was a good time. I One of the things I remember the first time I saw one of, I can't remember who it was, but I saw a picture of yours that was so different. It was a print that you had, and I said, "Did you do this computer? Is this photo?" And you're like, "No, I painted this. This is my artwork." And that's where I went, this guy is a little bit different than most of the guys pumping out pictures here on Artist Row, or or the vendors. There is a certain style that I am completely drawn to, Tom. And there's a power, and there's a couple artists that I always think do women right. And it's you and Terry Moore. Where
oh,
there's softness in the right places, but yet the strong feminine figure as well.
oh,
I think you
thank you.
two capture women realistically. Yeah,
Oh, so
no,
thank you very much. That's a very
it's
nice compliment, Shane. I really appreciate that.
yeah. So let's talk about so working with Doug, working on established characters. One of the fun things that's been for me to watch is the switch and coming out with your
Oh,
own ideas, and what a fun comic. What a it's there's really cool humor in that, and great characterization, and still a gripping action story. Uh, how long was that percolating before that finally came out of you?
well, for at least a year, I think, now my memory is a little fuzzy. I think it was about a year that I think Keith might have floated the idea, not necessarily the switch. Keith Champagne,
Yeah,
who's,
yep.
my writer, partner, brother in crime in comics. And, he's also worked with Doug extensively too.
Hmm.
Have you met Keith ever?
I met Keith up in Minneapolis,
Okay.
or up at either spring or fall. I get up to that quite often. I've met Keith. I want to get Keith down to Supercons, you may just need to throw him in your trunk and bring him down.
No, seriously, because if we can get him out to Supercon, he can just drive with me, save you guys on a little bit of gas, and stuff like that. Because we'll just fly and hang out and stay at my place, and then we'll just drive to Supercon and drive back and, share the apartment or share the hotel and stuff. So
yeah. Wait a minute, you're going to share the hotel with you're not bringing your bride then.
Well, we can make her sleep on the floor. No, just kidding.
Yeah. So yeah, So now, did you and Keith was Keith with you on the radioactive hamsters?
Yes. Yeah. So Keith and I, going back a little bit, Keith and I go way back. We met online back in, I want to say, 2003, 2004, online at at the time a private inkers group for pros, I guess non-pros too, on Yahoo, back when that was popular, Yahoo Groups. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I guess we just seemed to get along there. And then my very first San Diego Comic-Con in 2005, he just came up to my table and introduced himself in a really crass way that only I would understand, just from getting to know each other's sense of humor. And from that point on, I was like, this guy's cool. We hung out all weekend. And, so ever since then, we try to work together. And, we worked on adolescent radioactive black belt hamsters for Dynamite. That was fun because I remember that from the 80s. So when they're like bringing that, franchise back and they wanted to update it with a new generation of hamsters, I'm like, I'm totally in. And Keith is writing it. And, we worked on Ghostbusters for IDW for 4 issues. This was like 2007. And then we worked on The Undertaker, 2 issues for WWE back in the day. So, all of these are because of him. He likes my artwork enough to keep asking me to join him to do these little projects. So I have him to thank for that. But he came up with this idea for the Switch. It wasn't necessarily the Switch per se, but it was just more, let's do a Kickstarter. Everyone's doing that. And, people are having good success doing it. And it's a good way for us to just do our own, create our own thing. And I'm like, yeah, sure. I'm agreeable to it, but I guess I didn't take it as seriously as he did at the time. And he sent me some character descriptions, which ended up being Electricia, the main character, that blue girl on the cover. And, and I started throwing some sketches back to him. And all of a sudden, it seemed like all of a sudden he just set up a Kickstarter. He's like, yeah, we're going to launch. And I'm like, what? I'm like, no, I mean, I kind of had a sense that we were going to do it. But he really had the initiative to get the wheels rolling. So I said, okay, let's do it. So we did it. And, he busted out the script. Other than Keith being my friend, I just love working with the guy because his writing is just, it's not only is it good, I mean, he's written a ton of stuff for DC too. A lot of people know him as an inker, but he's a writer too. Yep. He's written the well-acclaimed Green Lantern Corps arc. What was it called? It was a while ago. But, it was when Pat Gleason was still a regular artist on there. And some JSA stuff. Anyway, he co-created The Mighty with Peter Tomasi.
Yes. Yeah, that's a very underrated character and book. That's a great story.
Yeah, so he's not a wannabe. He's definitely got skills as a writer. I kind of feel like, in a way, he might be pigeonholed more than he deserves to be as an inker. Kind of like the same way I am with, my inking and pencil when I try to break out of that whole mindset, that typecast. But anyway, so we launched it, and it was wildly successful, long story short. I'm still catching up on like rewards and commissions, believe it or not, because we've been so sacked since. And apologies to people waiting. You guys who know me know that if I'm late with anything or I'm a little slow, you guys know that I more than make up for it when you finally get it. Either by putting in more work on the piece or I throw in a little bit of extras, like surprise extras, wink, wink. So yeah. So that was, one of the proudest moments in my career, because it's my first official creator-owned thing. You know, we were going to just self-publish it, but then, you know, we have a connection with Dynamite, pitched it to Dynamite. Dynamite was willing to publish it, you know, so then that's great because it got us into more stores. It got us a little more exposure for our properties. So yeah, very, very happy, you know, and we own it. So who knows what's going to happen down the line. I will give you a hint that issue 2 is already kind of in the works, or the sequel. So there's no timeline for it.
Very cool.
But yeah, the wheels are already turning on that.
So how much contribution do you have to the storyline when you collaborate with Keith as far as writing on your creator-owned here on the Switch Electrica? Is it all his writing and then you just create the art, or is it a true collaboration? Like maybe Keith says, "Oh, I want the character to look more like this," or you come up, maybe this could be the action scene, or this is how it looks better. We could write it this way.
I'd say it's basically him. It's just all him. He'll ask for my input, but like I don't really have anything like worthwhile to contribute. You know, that's really his arena. You know, but he gives me free reign to do anything, literally anything I want as far as visuals. And I'm not just talking designing the characters, but I'm talking like he'll literally say, "Yeah, if you don't like what's in the script, just change it. Draw whatever you want." So he's too nice in giving me
trust.
Yeah, you know, and that's what makes a good working relationship, I think. But you know, I'm not gonna, you know, disrespect his you know, his script at all. So and I trust him. You know, he's better at it than I am. But he's, you know, always asking me for my input, and I might throw a couple things at him, but I don't think they're really meaningful. But that's how we collaborate as co-creators. So he does the backstory. I can have some contribution. I'm sure he'll let me create characters and throw in whatever. But, you know, I just let him work his element. I stay in my element, and I'm allowed to draw whatever I want. And, you know, that way, that's how we see our 50-50.
Yeah, it works. It works for sure.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I find interesting about you, and when I introduced you as a, you know, as a Renaissance man, kind of jack of all trades. So we've got, let's see, we've got bodybuilding, we've got inking, we've got original art, we've got photography. You think you can hit a baseball, but you do a lot of other.
Hey, are you challenging me to a home run derby?
I might be a little bit, Tommy. We got some nice batting cages here in Sioux Falls. We might have to check that out next time.
That's one of the things that I've been doing in recent years. I've been trying to like look at cons that might be located near a batting cage.
Yeah, we have one literally from the new convention center. It's about maybe 14 blocks. They
Nice.
have a really nice one. Yeah, but also, you mean your design, let's look at Big Brother. We'll look at WWE with Tommaso Ciampa. I mean, you really make sure that your product is out there. Is that a conscious effort by you, or are people coming to you because of your reputation?
A little bit of both. As far as the different people coming to me and the projects that land in my lap, a lot of that is just luck and, you know, knowing people and networking and just good fortune. But the result of that has added to my intention, even early in my career, to be as diverse as possible. Because my mentality is the more things I can show people I'm good at, the more hireable I am in different things.
Right.
So like if I slow down in, like, say, comic books, if the work is slowing down there, I can just get work in television, or I can just pick up some more photography work. So I wanted to make myself just more employable in case, you know, it just COVID times like this or something, you know.
Right.
And I've always consciously tried ever since I was a kid to be good at multiple things, like types of artwork. Like I always wanted to be a good portrait artist. I came up as a caricature artist.
Yeah, Valley Fair, right?
Right. And then I apply that to drawing portraits and doing likenesses of people. That's how I get hired to do commissions of people where it requires likeness, realistic portraits. The Big Brother stuff, I mean, that's all drawing real people on the TV show.
Right.
and they depend on that skill. Painting, airbrushing, that's where my pinups come from.
Mm-hmm.
From the pinups spawn photography, that's where that came from. The bodybuilding, you know, at one point I was so close, like I was pretty close to becoming a pro. I was literally one show away from becoming a professional, which, you know what that would mean at the time? Magazine endorsements, supplement companies. And at the
Right.
time I wanted to be the first guy who was like a pro in bodybuilding and comic books. Like for some reason that appealed to me. Like it was a weird goal that I
Well,
just
no,
wanted
but
that.
it's so like, look, we're not all nerds in mom's basement.
Yeah, and that was
Right,
fun, you know.
right,
And
right.
Doug, you know, and Doug and I had a lot of fun with that, you know, and
Yeah,
because he's a champion record holding powerlifter.
yeah. He's got some guns. I met
Yeah,
Doug a year and a half ago. He was down here in Sioux Falls and did a display at the
that's
Washington
right.
Pavilion at our art
Yes,
pavilion. Yeah,
with John.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
He's not small. He's
No,
not
no,
small.
and no, and even today on his Instagram, he was showing a clip of him just squatting, you know. And but you know, he was also, fun fact, the guy that kind of gave me the proper direction to go into bodybuilding,
Okay.
because he had already
Yeah.
been hardcore weightlifter, not competitively at the time, but he was always in the weights, always athletic. I was athletic, but not a weightlifter. I was just more like a baseball guy in some
Yeah.
karate or taekwondo. That was it. But yeah, so the bodybuilding actually helped me get clients in my photography, because they saw that,
Sure.
well, this isn't a photographer who just likes to shoot fitness models. This is a guy who understands how to pose them and light them because he does it himself. So I'm always looking for ways to diversify my portfolio. And you know, the phrase "jack of all trades, master of none." Um, I was always tried to be a jack of all trades and master all of the trades. Like I
Right.
wasn't
Right.
happy with just being sufficient. I wanted to be one of the best, if not the best, in everything. You know, and that's what drives me to continue to try to be appealing to different clientele. So yeah.
So, how'd the connection come with Tomasa? How'd the connection come to with the wrestling world there?
So that's pretty interesting. So on my first few seasons with Big Brother, one of the producers is actually married to Tommaso, and
Oh, okay, sure,
and so she was
sure.
the one. She was the one that I was in communication the most, as far as, you know, doing some of the gigs and assignments for the TV show, and you know, I, according to her, she thinks I saved her ass, as she put it, a couple times on deadline and stuff. Um, that's really nice of her to say, but you know, I was used to having, like I said before, my back against the wall. But apparently, that, you know, those particular assignments really meant a lot to her, and they threw more work my way. And you know, I did a small show in Milwaukee, and then you know, she and Tommaso were in that area, and asked me if I wanted to meet up for dinner. And that's when I first met Tommaso. This is before Tommaso even blew up.
Yeah.
So uh, as NXT champion. So um, didn't really know much about him other than his name. And I saw a couple pictures of him, but really down to earth, really quiet, soft spoken. And what struck me most about him was when we were eating dinner, and he was genuinely asking me about, you know, my art in comic books. Because you know why he asked me about my comic art? It wasn't because he's a comic book art like fanatic or anything, because he was actually trying to relate it and compare it to his art in the ring.
Right. Sure.
and
Sure.
and that's when I thought, wow, this guy really cares about the fans. Because during that conversation, it just seemed like he was trying to always put on a good show, just like I'm trying to put out good work, you
Right.
know. And he's the type of guy that's obviously willing to take the hits and the bumps just to entertain. And it, you know, it just gave me a newfound respect for him, and you know, for wrestling in general. I'd always been a wrestling fan. I was more of an old school wrestling fan, like, you know, AWA and
Yeah.
WWF.
Well, sure. AWA, Minneapolis. I mean, of course, it was
Right.
backyard for you, right?
Yeah,
The
yeah,
Ganyas,
yeah. And
the
then
Ganyas were right there.
Right. And then, I grew out of it for a while. And then, in recent years, I got back into it and everything. And the whole thing with Tommaso is just, icing on the cake. But it's great. I got to know him as a friend first. And I still see him as a friend first rather than the celebrity,
Yeah,
and client
yeah,
or whatever.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's. I love that you said, not just jack of all trades but master, because that really speaks to the type of person you are, Tom, and your character. It's not just that I'm going to invest time in this, and I would say this, Tom, and I mean this sincerely. It's not just your artwork. You invest time in people, and I think that's one of the reasons that you're remembered and why you get invited to multiple conventions all over. I mean, I follow you. You're all over the place, but you're memorable because when you're in the moment, you're in the moment with that person. And I don't always see that when I'm at conventions, and I don't think you've ever forgotten, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but to me, it always feels like you've never forgotten that you're where you're at because people put their trust and their money in you.
Right. I think that's really important. And I don't think that's something I really consciously thought about early in my career. When I was young, and I don't know, and a lot of it's just my association with Doug. It seemed like the world was in the palm of my hands, working regular books and everything, and big books too, and
Yeah,
working with
yeah,
Doug, and then people treat you a certain way at cons, but it's as you get older and more mature, and then like life circumstances and stuff like that, personal and family, and it kind of humbles you a bit. And you kind of take a step back, and then you start to observe. I started to observe more, just things around me, and then one of the things I noticed that kind of struck me probably, I don't know, maybe a few years into my career, at least 5 years into my career, I started looking, I was like, a lot of these people that do shows, the vendors, whether you're an artist or not, they really don't, some of them really don't pay attention to their customers.
great.
And
Yes,
in person, and it's like, I'll see people, and you have to understand like the people, this is kind of a stereotype, but the type of people who really enjoy this hobby, and it's just, it goes both ways. It's pros and non-pros too, that go to these things. Some of them, I mean, we grew up in an era where it's like almost embarrassing to admit that you read comic
yes,
books, and that was your
yes,
escape. That was your escape. It was an introvert's escape. Uh, so the comic book nerd crowd, the stereotype, that is alive and well, I feel, and they're shy when they go to these artists that they look up to and meet, and then I'll see these artists, they get their head down or they'll just barely nod and stuff, and just seem so cold and unapproachable. Um, I've had that with other pros, even as a pro,
yeah,
and
yeah,
I remember what it feels like, and I'm like, I told myself I'm going to do the best I can. I don't always get a 100%, but I'm going to do the best I can to really treat everyone that comes to my table with a smile, say hi to them, look up to them, not just bury my head drawing. Sometimes you can't help it because you do have to draw, and
yeah,
sometimes you
yeah.
miss people, but you can kind of see them coming from your peripheral vision. But yeah, I don't know. It's as I get older, the more I really need those fans and that support, and the best way you're going to get support is treat them like a friend.
Yeah,
And they
yeah,
do, and most of them really do become my friends.
yeah.
So
Yep. I 100% believe that. It's. I think it's been important, and if I can reflect back, that first SuperCon, it was you and Phil and Gordon and Elliot and Eric Gapster. Um, I don't know that we could have hit a bigger jackpot for establishing ourselves as a convention than bringing that group of people in, Sean Williams, who were willing to engage. We're talking, that was the first comic book convention, Tom, in South Dakota since 1986. And at the time, we had 5 comic book shops in the whole state. We're down to 3 in the whole state. So you guys' willingness to come and then to engage, and to really talk to the people and let them see you and to let them into the world a little bit. You guys are always going to be on the guest list because you made us just as much. I mean, seriously, because we were nothing. I mean, we hope we break even so we can do this again someday. And the feedback that we got and your engagement, man, we hit the jackpot with the right people. And that's, you can invest in 1 million people who can do your craft, right? But investing in the people that are going to give back and engage and be a part of something growing, that's what we're looking for. And
well, yeah, like I said, it's such a pleasure to grow, see you, grow with you guys. And like I said, just hit it from the ground up. And then, you talk about how great it was the first show. And then I remember the second show, like lightning struck twice, for the second show. I mean, it was like exponentially bigger. It was great. Yeah.
And then, we had a 5-year plan to get into the convention center. And by year 3, we were in the convention center. And that was insane. I mean, to get there that fast. Yeah, it's, we kind of hit when with Marvel movies and the DC and the Renaissance, Netflix and people investing in that. So it's kind of the right time. But you're spot on with the culture too. There's that, Mom's Basement, Dungeons and Dragons, Trench Coat Brigade. There's all that stigma that's put there. And I've watched people be so nervous and so worried about talking to someone whose work they've read or seen drawn for years. And to be able to make people feel comfortable in that's a real skill, Tom. And I'm glad you cultivated it because I think it's really who you are. Sure, everybody's cocky in their youth, but I think, it speaks to your character.
Well, thank you so much. It's, I just have to remind yourself, and this is something I should, I wish a lot of the vendors can say, like, most of the customers are more scared of you than you are of them, or, they have more anxiety talking to you than the other way around. So it's not going to hurt you.
Absolutely.
Try.
Absolutely.
In fact, when I have, my goof locally here is I always have models at the local shows, like the FallCon, SpringCon show. But the first thing I tell them is I said, this sounds like kind of authoritarian. You work for me. Your job is to make these fans feel like you made their day. Right. Because a lot of these fans can be socially awkward, especially around a beautiful lady. You know? So I don't know what they have gone through in their life, but if they're this socially awkward, I can pretty much put a bet on maybe, they're even more socially awkward around a pretty girl.
Right.
So I said, your job is to make their day. Don't make them feel like they're in school. Who knows? I mean, some of them might be, mocked or bullied in school. Don't do that.
Right.
So look, you work for me. Look how I treat them, and do at least as well. So that's what I tell them. That's my pep talk every year at my table. So, because I won't tolerate them snickering, making fun of them behind their back, and snickering when they're walking away. Like that's not cool. So
no, it's not. It's not. You're right. So Tom, let's talk. There's been a pretty significant personal change in your life. Congratulations.
Yeah, we got a puppy. Thank you.
Asshole. So congratulations. I mean, seriously, it's watching that unfold, and you were very public with it. I mean, you understand social media. You have, since the advent of social media that I've seen, you get it, right? You get putting a presence out there. But there's a difference between my professional life. You've been vulnerable enough to put your personal life out there, which I think is, again, speaks to the type of person you are and the acceptance you have of your fans and the people who follow you. If you're going to invest in me, well, here's what's going on with me, right?
Right.
So
I mean, I guess for people who don't know, I got married earlier this year officially, but to my wife Lana, who came from Vietnam. she came back with me. I went on a vacation there to essentially, get her, and then she can come back with me safely. And this was back November 20th. But we had been seeing each other on and off for when I could get over there, and just maintaining a long distance online relationship for a few years before that. But so she's been here for what, like about 10 months
10 months?
now? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, just learning to live in this country, learning English, and she's, getting better every day. And I keep telling her about the shows, Supercon amongst other shows that they don't have anything like that in Vietnam. Pop culture, comic cons and stuff like that. So,
Nothing.
so yeah, but, going public with it, it was deliberate in that it helped my stress, in that the public support was wonderful. Friends and fans, strangers. 2, going through the process of getting a fiance visa. And right now we're going through the green card process, which is just, as stressful. But public support always helps my psyche. There are people out there who have been through the same thing. So, advice was always great too. And finally, it was actually a way to show Department of Homeland Security that it's a legit relationship. And that's not a lie. I mean,
so that's real. No, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. I'm laughing at the absurdity of having to do that. Right.
Right.
God, it's laugh or cry in times like these, Tom. Yeah.
Especially currently, So.
Yep, absolutely. So again, I will congratulate you, but I'll also be a little bit hurt and pissed, because my dream is to have a SuperCon wedding, and you screwed that up. When
yes, and I remember. And you know what? I actually discussed that with her. I actually considered it because, but in the end, we just went with, let's just do it in Vegas. Just do it quickly, cheaply. Yeah. It's also kind of like showing her Vegas,
Right. Sure.
She'd never been and stuff like that.
Yep.
But don't think for a second
that of America culture.
yeah, right. But don't think that, man, I actually really considered it. And I thought, Shane's willing to do this, and it's in front of, like we've already got a crowd there and everything. And,
right. Catering's there, everything.
Yeah, everything's there.
DJ was there for you, lights, everything was there for you.
Seriously, and the people, they already support her because of me. Right. But in the end, I think it would have been too overwhelming for her. And,
sure, absolutely.
So.
I'm mocking you, but I do have a dream for those fans out there who are currently dating and thinking about proposing. I am an ordained minister, and I will marry you at SuperCon.
Yeah.
Quick plug.
Yeah. See, but now that you mention it again, now I'm thinking, God, what if we do? What if? Can't go back in time now.
Right. You've chosen to stay home, right? And in Minneapolis, in Minnesota, I'm sure that your career, you could have lived anywhere, you could have gone anywhere. What's Minnesota mean to you? What, coming up there and continuing to live there and work there, what's the Midwest and Minnesota really mean to you, Tom?
Basically, it's just where all my friends and family are. It's where I grew up. I was born in Minneapolis, and it's just what I'm comfortable with. It's very laid back Midwest, as you well know, and
Minnesota nice.
It's just Minnesota nice. It's the 4 seasons. As much as I'm not a big fan of winter, but it makes the interesting for part of the year anyway. And honestly, it's just comfortable. I've considered moving, to a faster pace, like California, even parts of Texas. I have plenty of friends there too that seem kind of fun. Just more of a change of pace than anything. But it's just here's where I'm comfortable. That's it. I do like the pace here, and everyone just seems to be pretty easygoing.
Sure, I appreciate that you're there.
Yeah, I do too. And plus, who knew? Not many people know that Minnesota is a hotbed of comic book artists. I mean, it's a hub.
Huge,
Yeah.
huge.
So why would I leave?
That's right. It is, and honestly, people don't. I mean, when you go to FallCon or SpringCon, it is a who's who. I mean, you know, Jurgens is there. Willingham's right down the road. Kraus.
Yep.
I mean, on and on. I mean, it is a hotbed of comic book creators.
Right.
And it has been. So Tom, I'm gonna. What's next? What's up next for you? What do we have on the pipeline?
Well, I'm doing some stuff for Big Brother right now. We're still in the middle of the season that started late due to COVID. So I was happy that we were able to get out a season this summer at all because, you know, it meant work for a lot of people who work behind the scenes in production. Of course, it's more work for me, you know, and I'm always grateful for. So currently I'm kind of knee deep in doing some stuff. I can't quite say yet, but you'll see soon enough on TV if you watch, if you're a fan of this show. You know, earlier this year I did some stuff for Nickelodeon for one of their shows. And I had, you know, done stuff for their shows in the past, like Double Dare and stuff. But yeah, it's right now I'm just catching up on commissions. I never seem to dig myself out of it. Big Brother, and then as the aforementioned, the Switch sequel. So that's what's on my plate for the rest of this year. Other than, you know, doing SiouxperConline, and I'm in talks to do another online show. I just confirmed to do ValleyCon in Fargo, North Dakota. With
is that happening? Or
that's happening with safety measures and social distancing and masks encouraged or enforced. So I'll be definitely practicing that when I'm there.
Yeah. So it's been quite a summer in Minneapolis. You've been safe, my friend? Everything's
I am. You know, we're in the suburbs, so we're far enough away from where the heavy action was. That and it looked like it started to creep out a little bit at the time, where the protests and you know, and then some of the looting and stuff happened. It started to creep out, it looked like, and then it just kind of stopped. And you know, I think things are fairly steady. You know, like I said, we're a little bit out far enough. We're about like 45 minutes away, so it's not really affecting us. I think we're in the clear, but, you know, things are all right. You know, places are opening back up, you know, but slowly. But with the way things are going, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if we shut down.
Right. No, it'd be the right move. Especially with the flu season approaching. You know, who knows what it's going to bring. You know, it's real world, real stuff. So, Tom, I always treasure our time together.
I'm sorry we can't do it in person this year.
As a creator, I know. You know, so I have to end with this story. I have to, because it's one of my favorite stories, and Brian hates when I tell this story, but I love when I tell this story. So Tom is showing up for the first Supercon, and all the guests are there, and we're sitting in a little hotel lounge and having drinks, and some of the guests have gone back to the room after getting food, and we're waiting, and I get a radio from the front desk said, "We think your last guest is here." So I said, "Brian, come on, I want you to meet Tom." And I walk out, and Brian doesn't know that I know you and that we've joked and stuff. And I walk out and I say, it's like an Asian, always late. And Brian's jaw dropped to the ground. He thought, oh my God, Shane's ruined this. One of our guests, we'll never have another convention. He's going to turn around and walk out. And he walked up and hugged me and told me to shut up. And then Brian's like, oh my God. So it's I love you, Tom. And everything
same here.
For us and everything you've done for my family and for SuperCon. Be well, and let's talk again soon.
Absolutely, my friend. Anytime.
All right. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you for having me. I'll talk to you soon, Shane.